What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the channel. Before we get into anything, I want to welcome in my guest, Matt. He's back for some more.
Hey guys.
Today we're going to be going over a tier list, going over kind of like a meta leaders list, but really just gonna talk about certain decks and the colors that they're really good in. We have 3 separate tiers today. We're not going to be going over like the D or the C tier list leaders, like as much as I love them, Thrawn. We're not going to talk about Thrawn. We're not going to talk about Jhin, IG-88. We're going to talk about more competitive decks, and even if they're not at the top of the meta, these are still going to be decks that you can play at any point at locals and do really well. And then as you continue to climb up is when you're going to be doing well in bigger tournaments, right? So starting off with again, the lowest tier, we're going to be putting some leaders in there. And then we're not going to go over these deck lists in depth. We're just going to talk about the leaders and why we kind of slotted them in there, right? Let's go ahead and talk about the first one. We have Kylo Yellow. I do think that he's a solid rogue deck. He's really fast. He has a really good amount of tempo. He's probably best using yellow rather than just red. Red can be easily kind of countered. At least yellow, you have some options, stuff like that. Also, the ability to randomly throw out a surprise strike and deal an extra 3 damage can really catch someone off guard and can end a game, really. But again, he's a solid rogue deck because he can finish a game in 3 turns. That's like the perfect hand. He can finish a game in 3 turns. So
yeah, which is, I mean, Sabine can do the same sort of thing, but Sabine's a lot more consistent. And Sabine still has a game plan after that turn, while Kylo kind of peters out after that turn 3. And if Kylo goes down on that turn, it's really hard for the deck to kind of work its way. It loses a lot.
Yeah, losing cards throughout the match really from turn 1, right? You're discarding just to make sure that when you get Kylo out, you have no cards in hand. It does kind of hurt the deck if, again, as Matt stated, if they have, something to take out Kylo Ren because he does die to an open fire, take down all these things, and if you can't have Kylo Ren at least swing in once into a base, you're looking at an uphill battle. But when you do get Kylo to stick and then you have a fallen lightsaber on him and then start doing some force throws, because then you can start getting rid of some of your opponent's stuff, that's when the deck starts to go burr and go really fast and start stabbing off your opponent. But still, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's just not as consistent as the decks in the higher tiers, but still, you can win a lot of games at locals with this deck for sure. I put Han, I don't know if you agree, but I put Han Green in solid rogue decks because I kind of feel like in the way that it wants to function, right? I like to run Han Green as a rebel-centric Han Green, although that's not the way that most people like to run him. But a lot of people like to run the ramp Han, right? Get the Crate Dragon as soon as possible and kind of go there. And if you're building the deck that way, if you don't get your ramp, you kind of just are there. It's just not as consistent as another Han list, which we'll go over in a little bit. But it's just not as consistent as I would like it to be. So I kind of put it as solid rogue deck. People might argue that it's an A tier deck, but what do you think?
I definitely think it's probably somewhere on the borderline. I do feel like some of the other Han lists are a little bit better. It's still a really good deck, and being able to use the CL to slam out Poe or Wrecker is absolutely scary. Big swing turn on when you do that. But I just think this, the other color.
Yeah, for sure. Continuing on here, right? We're gonna go ahead and talk about Palp Yellow. I know that someone at my local scene loves Palp Yellow. This is one of his baby decks from set 1, right? And I still think it's pretty viable. Again, against certain matchups, if you go up against aggro, you are looking sad at times, but it's still pretty good, especially with the new addition of the new cards. I think that it's pretty solid. It can go to a solid road deck. You can win a few locals with this deck if built properly.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I messed around with Palp Yellow quite a bit at the beginning of that one as well, and it's a very fun deck. I do think, again, this is a similar situation. It's good. There are better Palp lists, though.
Yeah.
This, compared to double green Palp, this doesn't necessarily ramp. But it's a bit trickier because you get access to things like Change Your Heart, which may be a bit more give you a bit more of a tempo swing, and the later stages of the game, which Palp really excels in. I feel like it's strong. It'll do good in locals. Don't know if it's going to be out there crushing, like the top decks in like big tournaments. Though I feel like it kind of lacks a bit of longevity.
It does do pretty solid against Boba Green though, in a lot of matchups, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
I'll give it that. But there's other things that it struggles quite a bit with.
Oh yeah, for sure. Another deck is one of the new ones. We have Ray Red now. People might want to say that it's an A tier, but I kind of keep it in the solid rogue deck. Now, it does do a little of everything, right? It has some good tempo. It does have some good removal. It has a lot of restore. So, like, it has the longevity. It can live and all stuff, but you have a deck full of very weak units that you have to use Ray's ability to start giving the experience to, which can cause you to like use your resources to kind of make sure your units can live a little bit longer or hit a little bit harder. And if that's the case, you're not hitting their base as hard without Ray's ability, and it maybe kind of still ends up losing. Like, yes, you can restore a ton, but there are ways around restore that your opponents can kind of do, and they're like, I just feel like this deck, as good as it is, I just think that it kind of falls here because there are a lot of decks that can kind of trump over it. I do like it. It's a lot of fun because of what it does. Like, you can get a Green Squadron A-Wing, kind of go into space, even with a restored arc 170, and then you can go ahead and give it some +1s and swing a lot in space, which can be enough to kind of slow down some decks. And then again, you have Yoda with Restore 2, Moisture Farmer with Restore 2, Ray Restore 3, Luke Restore 3, just all these Restore units, and Restored Arc has Restore 1. But in all, I just don't think it like can compete against certain decks, or like other decks are just better.
Yeah, it's also just like running the red gives you all those like fun little arrow options. And also gives you access to the really good hand hate stuff like Pillage and Force Throw, which is really good in the deck. But some of the units like Poe, and even if you wanted to run like Wrecker, lose a little bit of viability not being able to like ambush them out with ECL. That's probably one of the things about Poe is okay, I'm gonna spend 5 ECL, crash them into something. At the same time, I'm gonna discard some cards, force you to discard, do an extra damage. Like that is huge. Not being able to do that makes playing those cards not feel as good in this deck.
Yeah, for sure. Next, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna talk about Tarkin Yellow. Now, Tarkin was actually one of my favorite decks to play. It's one of the decks I started using against you when we first started playing, and made you hate green villainy.
I hated Overwhelming Barrage most of all. It was just you buffing Tarkin or using Tarkin to buff things, and then as soon as you hit 5 resources, I was getting hit with like a 6-7 point OB. I was just like, what's going on? Like, guys, I'm just learning how to play this game, please.
Yeah, but Tarkin's near and dear to my heart, but I still think he falls in solid road decks. Now, the yellow aspect gives you access to Lurking TIE Phantom, stuff like that, and then you can go ahead and you can run a heavy space vehicle or just vehicles in general type of deck, use triple dark raid and stuff like that. It provides a lot of speed to the deck because Lurking TIE Phantom, if you allow it to start get experience tokens, it becomes really hard to get off the board, because even if you are swinging something into it, you know, that takes 2 actions, playing it and then swinging into it, because you can't use your removal on it because of its ability. You can't use bounties on it because its ability. You can't, you know, capture it because of its ability. So like, it just stays on the field, and if it's not taken care of like right away when it's a 2/2, it can become a problem. Plus it has raid 2, so automatically it's swinging for 4 right out the gate. It becomes a problem, and then you start getting out triple dark raid into TIE Advance. You go ahead, put on the Lurking TIE Phantom. It just starts to snowball from there. So if your opponent is not expecting this deck and they don't know how to play against it, this deck can easily trample over a lot of decks and can catch people off guard. But again, most people do know what to expect when it comes to Tarkin Yellow, which is why I kind of put it here.
Yeah, in addition, like, with such a focus on the buffing of units, experience tokens for Tarkin, it's very susceptible to balancing, which a lot of the higher end decks feature quite a bit of, which makes the TIE Phantom less valuable in the matchup. So like it'll do great against some of these other like we're saying, these rogue decks that hey you can have fun with it at your local um, your locals.
Yeah, but if you want to
But
compete, you know,
yeah,
in bigger tournaments, you kind of want to start going with the stronger decks, right?
not saying it can't perform,
Yeah.
but it has a harder time doing it. Like when you get to the point where you're playing up against just Sabines, which are going to be faster than you, and the Bobas, who are probably just going to bounce your tie phantoms because they see you starting to buff it. Like it kind of slows you down.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and do these two at the same time in the B tier, right? I have Luke and Vader in B tier. Now, people might say they're strong enough to kind of compete, but I think this is a good spot for them. They are still really solid, right? They're not bad by any stretch. They're just, you know, not used as much now. And with all the other things, like a lot of set ones when it comes to Sabine, Han, and Boba, they all got significantly better. Now, Vader, you know, you have your phase 3 dark troopers, right? So that's pretty cool. You can replace your cell block guards, and you still have the overall mirage and that type of stuff. And then with Luke, you do have more options with restore and stuff like that. But again, I think that they're really solid. I think that you can win any type of like local scene, and again, you can perform in bigger tournaments as long as you like. Obviously, if you're using a solid list, I just think that they slot in at solid rogue decks, but can easily kind of inch their way towards the top of it and into strong decks. But I think this is kind of where they lie right now.
Yeah, I also think like Invader specifically, he struggles a lot with the introduction of Rivals Fall as a card because a lot of the Vader focus is ramping up to get Vader out and using Vader to just last until you have like one of your top end bombs, and Rivals Fall just kind of removes him right off the board.
Yeah,
it makes him much less effective at actually doing his job.
Yeah, Rivals Fall kind of did take out a lot of leaders, huh?
Yeah, because remember, it's 6 cost card to kill anything, and Vader comes out at 7. So even if you manage to ramp once and get Vader out on when your opponent still has 6, you still run the risk of just dropping Vader and they insta kill him.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it do be what it do be. Now let's go ahead and talk about Bosk Green. I think he goes here. When he goes off, right? He's really fast. He can ramp really fast because of his ability and the bounty to get a resource. You end up getting 2 resources, and you start to like really just start put things down and can really start popping off, especially with like his ability and Dengar. You can kill something on turn 1. If you have a bounty, you can use his ability and Dengar's ability to potentially take out a unit right away, which is really, really good. And you collect that bounty. You might not get 2 bounties, but you can start the game off on the right foot and put your opponent really on their back foot, and then just start snowballing from there. But again, there are times when this deck might clog up. You might have too many bounties in your hand and no units and stuff like that as the game continues, and that can get kind of sad times, right? Obviously, you need to find the right blend of units to bounties and all that stuff. But
granted, with boss synergy, with being able to ping units that have bounties, having a bounty heavy hand isn't the worst thing. Just playing a bounty on your opponent's turn 1 play and then just pinging it across 2 turns. Most turn 1 units will die off that.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to get like a good head start, either to ramp off it with price on your head, or to get something on the board for free with a bounty on Quarry. So even being a bit overladen with the bounties, it still works in his favor. Like Bosk, like you said, when he is able to go off, he ramps like crazy, and you get to your top end stuff like Great Dragons or a Devastator really quickly, and then it's a problem. But yeah, and the early parts of the game are probably his.
Yeah, I still like him though, and I have a few friends who like Bosk and are going to be starting to play him and stuff like that. Just again, I think he can perform really, really well. And again, none of these rogue decks are bad, right? They're all solid choices. So if you want to try it out, definitely try it out. The last deck that I'd probably put down here is probably the Hondo Blue. And it's not because it's a bad deck. I know it performed really well at Gen Con, but I think that there are other blue-green villainy decks that are just better. But again, there's more of a learning curve when it comes to this deck. And, you know, 100%. if you are really good with the deck, you can pop off just as good as those other decks. But I think with the other decks, they're more like easy to jump into and kind of play that way if you want to play control villainy. It's very popular when you're playing control, playing the villainy blue. But I think Hondo's cool. Hondo's one of my favorite characters in the show, but I think he falls right here as far as the tier list goes.
Yeah. So Hondo's going to center entirely around trying to get the most value out of his ability, getting experience tokens for smuggling, which you can do things like smuggling conventions to ambush in a unit, which is great for opponents' pieces, and also buffing it, so possibly trade. But it, like you said, it's got a high learning curve. It really takes pilot to pop off. It is solid because blue villainy is solid.
Yeah.
But
it'll never go away.
It'll never go away. But there are a few other like few leaders that are running that same blue villainy, blue green villainy package, but generally have a bit more consistent.
Yeah. But that's going to do it for all the rogue decks. Now, again, as we stated, these are all very good decks. You can win any tournament with these decks for the most part, but there are just other decks that might fall a little higher. And we're going to start off with Palp Green here. This is like in my opinion, it's stronger than Palp Yellow and yours as well. It's able to kind of like live a lot longer and like sustain. And yes, it does die to Sabine Green, to Sabine.
But it doesn't. It has a slightly better match.
Yes, exactly. Like, and there are times when it can really hold off that deck depending on what it gets, right? But with like the Royal Guard coming in, with like you're playing Yularen in this deck, and everything's a green unit for the most part, unless you're playing just a straight villainy unit. But then you're just healing every single turn for the most part, unless your opponent gets rid of Yularen. But then you just play another one if you get it, and stuff like that. And just a double green package. You get command at 4, which allows you to ramp quicker. You get your resupply. You get your super laser tech that you can use Palpatine's ability to pop, which you can do it in yellow too. But in this deck, again, you get command at 4, which can do a lot of different things. You can get resource, you can buff up one of your units. So if you have Royal Guard on the field, right, you can go ahead and buff it up. If it has Sentinel because it's official, then it just becomes a really big problem, and you can blow something up. He basically has Strike True on it as well. So it's like, it gets kind of crazy, and this has been the best way to play Palp, and I do think it's a really strong deck. I think that it can win. I do think that you have to have the right pilot for this as well. Like as we talked about with Hondo, because there are people who just like do a lot of, I don't even know, but like I think you have to be the right pilot for this too. But I think that if you are, like, it's really strong.
Yeah, definitely. Like you're saying, with command has great synergy in the deck. You're getting that for 4 instead of playing it for 6, like you would if you wanted to try running it out yellow. Have the experience tokens you can give out, which getting if just on curve playing like Yularen into Royal Guard into command, just back to back on turns, and getting what is that, a 5/7 Sentinel?
Yeah, it's strong.
It's strong. Not to mention, double green gives you access to Enterprising Lackeys, which is just a super consistent card for him. Being able to consistently just smuggle it out, and anytime it dies, he just puts it right back.
Yeah,
and means he is constant availability for a sack outlet, so that he can just sack things for his ability to ping, because he consistently has a unit he can play as long as he has the resources. And it's just a really good card.
Also, stealing something is always good. Just gonna say,
always
stealing Crate Dragon feels great.
And when you're playing Palp, it's theft is okay. Not only is it okay, but it is encouraged.
Yes. Next, we're gonna go ahead and talk about Boba Blue here. I'm gonna put Boba Blue here, mainly because like it's just good. Boba's just good in general. But playing a controlled Boba list with the ability to go ahead and ready resources to play out things as you're using removal pieces is just mean. It's just solid. I don't really want to spend too much time talking about it because it's Boba with control. And it's, again, ready resources to play more control pieces. It's just really good.
It's annoying. Played against it, not the best time. The combination of blue being that blue villainy package we talked about, killing all your stuff or entrenching you, and then also yellow for things like No Good to Be Dead, and Waylay, all this other junk that's really annoying. It's really disruptive.
Mhm.
So he just kind of survives and then drops down an Avenger because you can't really kill him too big. Because,
Also, him coming out on 5 as a unit is just a problem in general.
yeah, definitely.
Let's go ahead and hop into, I think, Iden Double Blue. This is one of the decks that I talked about at the start of set 1, how much of a problem it would be. It's just annoying to play against. I'm not going to lie. It is so annoying to play against. But, hey, it's here. It's control. It's double blue. Vigilance for 4. What are you going to do? Iden Green as well is really strong. I don't have it on this list. It would probably fall in the same tier list. It's really just because, like, green blue villainy is just super strong. Like, that might just be top of the meta in general, right? Like, blue green villainy is just better than everything. You can put all of them up there, but you know, I'm gonna go ahead and put Krennic at the top of strong decks because I do think that there's a better green villainy deck at the moment. But we're just gonna hop right into Krennic here, and blue green villainy with Krennic is really strong because he, with his ability, can have things swing into your base with bigger hits, and that becomes a problem. He's healing when he comes out. He has Restore 2, which is a problem. And again, we all know about the ability to use the removal with blue villainy. It's just evil. If you want to run it with ECL, you can go ahead and ECL into ramp with super laser attack, or you can use it with Gideon Hask and ECL into something and then automatically give out that experience, which is really scary. And Gideon Hask becomes just a big problem from there. It's just a lot. And then you get the cargo juggernauts and more shielded units, and the sad times keep on rolling. But Krennic Green is
Not to
stable from
mention-
set 1.
Yeah, not to mention Gideon Hask into an OB the next turn.
Yeah.
Is incredibly problematic for everyone involved.
Yeah, it's a sad time for sure. But yeah, Krennic Green strong from pretty much day 1, and I think it'll continue to be strong. Going into the the next list, again, you could probably put Boba Fett in the top of the meta. I didn't want to fill it up with all Boba Fett, so we're gonna put this Boba Fett Green again. Super strong ECL. We all know. Also, he has a bunch of ambush units, which helps with the controlling of the board. He comes out. He overall barrage. He OBs. It becomes a problem. The thing is like you can go ahead and when you have 5 resources, you can go ahead and use Cloud Rider, take something out, ready up those 2 resources, bring out Boba Fett. Ready up the 1 resource. So that was some really bad jumbling, but you know what I mean. If you spend the 1 resource, you bring out something, you kill something, you bring out Boba Fett, then you ready up the resources, and it gets kind of crazy. Like, because Boba Fett can then go ahead and swing at base, ready up those 2 resources from the Cloud Rider, right? And then you can use Overwhelm Barrage to clear up the rest of the field. Swing with other stuff. It's just, it's a problem.
Yeah, Boba Green, still really good. Got a lot of good pieces this set. People aren't playing it as much, but it still performs.
Yeah.
It just got a bit of a better top end because you have all that is just really synergistic with all the units Boba wants to run anyway. But you also still have the Vaders in there with the first, like the high end green units always being good.
Green is just good, and it will forever be good. So, let's go ahead and talk about. So now we're gonna get into the deck lists of these top end decks, right? There's still gonna be some in the strong meta, but let's go ahead and let's talk about probably my favorite new leader. I think he goes here. I don't think he's top of the meta just yet, but I still think he's really strong. Being able to cheat out units just by giving them damage is just really, really strong. Yes, it becomes susceptible to things like Tarkin Town and things that ping, but this deck list by Wu, it's just really strong. You have Force Throws and Pillage for, hand hate, right? You're playing, you can get Restored Arc for 1 if you want to and play another thing, right? And the turn when it's 3 resources, you can get out 2 space units. Green Squadron, you're playing Luke for 6, really scary. You can play Wrecker for 5, so you can bring out Han Solo, then bring out Wrecker. If you want to blow up a resource, you can, but you don't have to. Again, you have Chewbacca in there, for the late game, it has Smuggle, so that's pretty cool. Or you can just play it down because it has Grit, so you play it for 7, and it is a 6/8, which is just kind of crazy.
Wait, if you drop 6/8 for 7, that kills something on your opponent's side.
Yeah, it's just strong, right? And Obi-Wan playing for 5, Pose, you're playing for 4. Like, Han's ability is just good, right? And this deck list by Wu, as you see, is just really, really good. It also, again, as we stated, it has the hand hate. It also, Cassian's, when your opponent thinks you're all out of, your hand and you don't have anything, you can go ahead and play Cassian for Smuggle. And go ahead and it's out ready. So it's one of my favorite units. Right, yeah, it's one of my favorite units. Also, on turn 1, it is just a Battlefield Marine if you want it to be. So, as long as you're not playing against Target Town. So, I just think that this deck is really good. It's really fun. And it has a couple restore options as well to kind of keep it going. All right.
Now, about the top.
No. We still got some A tier decks, right? We have Han Green. I still think I think it's an A tier at the moment. And just because I just think that the other Han is a little bit better. And I think that actually maybe both of them kind of fit in this. Strong decks can win at any given point. But let's go ahead and talk about Han Green, right? Han Green, still, we know from set 1, really, really strong. And, it's going to continue to be strong. But in this set, right, with the addition of DJ and Tech, it gets absolutely wild because you can steal a resource and then blow up that resource on your next upkeep phase or the next, regroup phase. I don't know why I said upkeep. I was playing Magic today. I apologize. But but again, being able to steal a resource and pop it, it's essentially another ramp piece. And then you have your resupplies, you have your Marauder, which is pretty solid as well. And again, you're using a lot of ambush units. The Millennium Falcon coming out ready, it provides a lot of tempo as well. So I think the deck is just really solid, and it's going to continue to be good.
Yeah, I completely agree. But yeah, with the introduction of the fun little effects of Tech plus DJ, being able to steal your opponent's resource and smuggling DJ out for a reduced cost, and then blowing up that resource with the Han ability and starting the next turn becomes real interesting tempo swing there. Then he still has all the goodies from Step Falcon. He has the for late game to just flood the board.
Being able to get home one. So another thing we didn't talk about with this deck is why it's so good is the ability to kind of cheat out things really early. So when you get to 5 resources, using his ability to get to 6, bringing him out, swinging, get to 7, and then you can play Han on that turn to kill something on your opponent's side, keeping Han on the board, having a 6/6 on the board to pretty much it trades into every leader. So if you get that out early and your opponent doesn't do anything to get rid of it, then they have to be cautious of when they get their leader out, and it gets kind of crazy from there. And then also the same thing happens with Home 1. You can get that out really early, and then you're just in a really good spot. And that's what makes Han Solo really good: the ability to go ahead and get out these momentum swinging units way earlier than your opponent. And then the sideboard, you have Reinforcement Walker just because you need to drive a screwdriver in your opponent's gut. But yeah, Han Solo Green, still very solid and a lot of fun to play. Yeah, okay. The next deck list I want to talk about is Sabine Yellow. Now, this is my favorite deck list from set 1. This is what I won my store championship with. It's really solid. It's really fast. It's this is my go-to when it comes to being competitive from set 1. In set 2, I changed it up a little bit. Not really that much. I changed it up as much as I quote-unquote could.
Yeah.
But this is just Sabine Yellow, right? You have the Rebel package with it, right? And that's what makes it so fast. I do kind of like Sneak Attack. The ability to use Sneak Attack with K2SO, it makes for a really hard-hitting turn 2 play. If you can also keep something on the board and still have momentum with it. So I like the Sneak Attack aspect of it. Surprise Strike, just being able to dish out +3 at any given point. Being able to use Millennium Falcon, Green Squadron A-Wing, Red 3, Wing Leader, right, to kind of patrol space. And then you have good ground options as well. Poe in this list might not be ideal. I might want to switch Poe out with a couple Chewbacca's and maybe put it in a Han Solo if I want to kind of go that route. But if I can get Poe to stay, it's just, it can become really valuable later on to kind of deal out extra damage to the base with an attack and discarding and stuff like that. Cassian, getting another option for late game if you need that, because there's always those games where you need that one extra damage, and maybe you've already used your Sabine ability or something like that. Bring out Cassian for 5 from Smuggle, having him readied up. Like, there was a time when I played against Qi'ra Green, and he had Snoke, and it was late game, and I was like doing a ton of damage early on, but then I kind of hit that wall because all my units get -2/-2, but I was able to finish out the game by bringing out Cassian and then bringing out a Holdout Blaster. Holdout Blaster is another really good card from this set, because while playing with Smuggle, you get to attack with a unit, it gets +2/+0, so it just basically negated the Snoke ability, which is pretty solid. I just really like this deck. Heroic Resolve, I do like it in the deck. It makes the deck a little bit slower, so it is kind of like an in and out. It's kind of one of the options that I choose to use to sideboard. But Heroic Resolve against decks that are heavy with Sentinels is just really good, because, you pay 2, get +4/+0, swing into a Sentinel, and still deal massive damage to the opponent's base, which is just always pretty good. Next up, we have probably the last deck. I probably put it at the very top of, like, Boba Green and Han Yellow. Those are like the two that could easily slide into the top of the meta, but I didn't want to flood the top of the meta, right? And again, blue, green, villainy, all those decks are top of the meta, but again, we wanted to kind of talk about what is probably like the toppest of the toppest, Yep. That's great English. So let's go ahead and talk about Han Solo, double yellow, what makes him really good. And again, you see the Holdout Blaster. Smuggle cost uses Cunning, so that's what makes it really good, because you can go ahead and play it, and either way you're playing it for 3, right? Even if you're playing it straight from your hand, or if you're playing it from your resources, you're playing it for 3. But the goal is to use it with Smuggle so you can attack with a unit and deal an extra 2 damage to the base or to another unit, right? But again, this deck, super strong, using things like L337, DJ, and Tech, as we talked about earlier. There's a ton of ambush with it. There's things that bounce with Waylay and Cantina Bouncer. Bodhi Rook makes it so you can get rid of those like annoying events and stuff like that. It's just a ton of options in this deck to kind of control the board and go that route. Change of Heart as a one of, that's some really good tech, because late games being able to steal something to swing in potentially for game. Cunning for 4, can't stress this enough. Cunning for 4 is just really good. It's so evil. I hate playing against double yellow decks. I love playing double yellow decks, although I play double yellow Thrawn. I don't play Han or Boba because I just feel bad sometimes. But Cunning for 4 is just so strong. Being able to get something +4/+0, bouncing things, exhausting 2 units, having your opponent discard a random card, all 4 of those abilities are really good. And again, Han's ability to be able to cheat out units earlier than your opponent can get to these points is just really strong. So, double yellow package with Han's ability, it gets kind of scary. All right, Matt doesn't have anything to say. Let's go to the next.
I mean, you covered everything. It's really like, and we already talked about a lot of stuff with Han Green that Han Yellow still has, and plus the double yellow, all those really nice little things like
it's the cunning that is really scary.
I have nothing more to add. It's pretty well said.
Okay, so now let's go ahead and hop into the next tier, right? You're the top of the meta, and I think the first one I'm going to talk about is Boba double yellow. Again, we just talked about what made Han so good. It's essentially the same thing, except that you get to ready resources, and not only that, you get to use New Adventure with Fett's Fire Spray, and that is where the game kind of takes off. You also can use a lot of things to suspend your exhaust your opponent's units, like No Good to Me Dead, where they stay an extra turn, and it can get really crazy. And everything in this deck is super low cost, except for really the Fett's Fire Spray at 6 being the most cost, which is pretty crazy. If you can get Forlom to stick, and you get Zuckuss with Ambush, and Forlom then gain Saboteur, like, this deck just is really, really, really strong. It's gonna continue to be really strong. The sideboard, as you see, right, you have Bodhi Rooks if you're going up against control, Lurking Tie Phantoms, which again, if you're going up against control, those are good switches because they can't use their control pieces on Lurking Tie Phantom. Relentless Pursuit is also really good in this deck because you can go ahead and use it early on, give Boba Fett a shield, and you can start using it as a control piece on things that are attacked, kind of get rid of them because you deal the 3 damage, then you deal your damage. And it's just really solid. It has a good mix of ways to exhaust units, a good mix of like burst damage with the holdout blaster, with surprise strike, with cunning, right? A lot of ambush units. It's just, again, it's always going to be super strong, right?
Yeah, like I said, it's that same sort of double yellow package that that allows, especially in Boba, it's a bit more worrisome because it synergizes so well. The cunning being able to be like, oh, we're gonna bounce that unit back to your hand. Oh, that triggers Boba's ability. I guess I got a discounted cunning. Like, it's annoying. And on the wrong turn, he does a lot. And it is too much, man.
It's funny though. I mean, it's a good deck. It's a really good deck. I do enjoy playing against it. Like, I know that in the store showdown in New York, there's a few people running it. I was like kind of devastated that my first match was against it. I was like, man, if I lose game 1, that's gonna suck. I did end up winning that match. Again, this is one of the decks I do enjoy playing against. I think I played against it so much that I have a good understanding of how to play against it, but it gets kind of, it becomes a lot. And when they pop off, which is often because the deck doesn't take that much to kind of get to that point, it's just a threat at any given point, really. So
the one thing it doesn't have that Boba Green has, Boba Green can ramp on turn 2 to get an early Boba, which is worrisome in its own right. But I think Boba Yellow's got enough tools to slow down your opponent.
Yeah.
That doesn't.
I just think cutting for 4 is just enough to make
cutting for 4. Really. Cutting for 6 is a good card.
Yeah.
Cutting for 4 is exceptional.
Yeah, it do be that way. Now, going over my favorite list, if I'm gonna go like, I think that Sabine's probably like Boba. I think would be here. Sabine would go here, but I'm gonna talk about Sabine now. If I were to go into a competitive setting, I mean, maybe I would use Boba Double Yellow, but like in a big tournament, like the Planetary Qualifier, I'm gonna probably use Sabine Green for the most part, just because I do like red heroism. That's what I've played from the start. I love Cassian. I love all that stuff. So Sabine Green might be the way I go if I don't go Sabine Yellow. But Sabine Green, having access to the Darksaber, Wrecker now with ECL, Poe with ECL, these are some really good tools. Having Ketsu Onyo to get rid of those pesky entrenches and stuff like that, as long as she hits the base. And also, if you have the Sabine with the Darksaber and you swing and you have Ketsu Onyo, she'll get an experience. And, you know, it's a really good package. Again, you're still focusing mainly on the Rebel package, but I do have timely interventions in there just in case I need ambush at any given point. I can use it for smuggle for 2, or I can use it for 1 and kind of go that route. So even when I use my ECL ambush is not quite dead in this deck, which makes it pretty good. The sideboard is more towards, again, control matchup if it gets out of hand. This deck, I went up against a Qi'ra green deck in this last week's locals, and I was able to do a ton of damage. They didn't use ECL, they wanted the extra 5 HP, but even with the 5 HP, I was able to win because they did ramp when they had 7 resources, and then I won the second game. They had, I think, 8 or 9 resources. I'm going to end up showing that deck list, this deck list a little bit more in detail, and then show off the matchups against Qi'ra in a later video. But again, I think that this deck, because at any given point, Sabine with a Darksaber just kind of wins the game. Like, that's always the potential. And maybe it's just a brain dead deck, sure, but it's a brain dead deck that I play, all right, and that's why it goes here. no, I'm just kidding. But it's just a lot of fun. I just like I like red heroism aggression, and Sabine is the best red heroism deck at the moment. And it just is what it is.
Aggro, that's my smooth brain. Get the tickly funny feeling without needing actual computing power. No, the addition of Dark Saber in this deck was actually interesting because not you don't even have to put it on Sabine.
No.
Like
I
putting
put
it on
the
like,
K2SO against Qi'ra because
even
the overwhelm was
yeah,
crazy.
even just putting on a Battlefield Marine, like there is a scenario where like Sabine just kills you on her flip, just from herself in a battlefield. It's wild.
Yeah, it's just a super fast deck, and again, as Matt stated, my super smooth brain can only handle that. But that being said, and probably the best deck at the moment, green blue heroism is just super strong, and I do think that this is probably
Green blue villainy.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I like heroism more. That's why I said that. But yeah, green blue villainy. Qi'ra's probably the top of the meta right now, then followed by Boba, and you could probably slide in Boba Green if you really want to, followed by some type of Sabine, probably Sabine Green. I think Sabine Green is just stronger than Sabine Yellow in this set because of Poe and other options like that, and then Timely Intervention. But again, let's go ahead and talk about the Qi'ra list just because it's evil. No, I'm not a huge fan of control, but you can't get around the fact that this deck is just good, right? The ability to use Qi'ra's ability on turn 1 with the Enforcer to make it a 3/2 with a shield, scary. The Pike Sentinel on turn 1, it becomes a 2/1, but it has a shield, scary. Right? Power of the Dark Side, we all know, make an opening, gets rid of those lurking TIE Phantoms, it doesn't become a threat. You have the ramp, the Super Laser Technician using Qi'ra's ability right away to pop it and give you that ramp right away. That's scary. Resupply, obviously, we know, good ramp. Death Trooper is just a good card when mixed with Qi'ra's ability, because when she comes out, everything gets half HP, and then you can potentially finish something off with a Death Star Stormtrooper. That's scary. The Client, the ability to go ahead and give out bounties to heal yourself when you take out stuff, because again, this deck takes out things really, really fast. Gideon Hask with ECL, it's a problem. The Lone Pike, right? Maybe not many people saw this card being a problem. It's a problem. Yes, you're giving your opponent a shield, but you're also getting a shield, and this thing just takes out units left and right. Mixed out with the Client, it's just crazy. So
I was gonna say, like, Lone Pike, it on paper doesn't look as crazy as you would think, but in a deck that doesn't care about enemy units having shield, because it's just gonna go, I'm just gonna play Takedown, I'm just gonna play Power Dark Side, I'm just gonna play Rival's Fall. Does not matter that you have a shield. Your card is gone anyway, and I got a shield out of it and damage on this.
Yeah.
So I don't care.
Yeah, this deck is scary. It's gross. It can win against any matchup. Yes, I was able to beat it with the Sabine, like the Sabine that I played, but again, I might have just gotten that, like, the good hands and played well that match. Like, this deck can handle the aggro, right? And again, Supreme Leader Snoke, Elish Norn 2.0. I mean, this guy comes out and puts a damper on all the things. And then it just makes it so Qi'ra can live longer. And then you start seeing Avenger, Relentless, Devastator. It's just one after another. Big FUs dropping down one after another, and it's a sad time. And the sideboard is equally as disgusting because you have the top target. Boom, you're healing for 6 if it's on a unique unit, right? More Relentless, more Devastators. You know, that makes sense, right? Then you have Palp's Return, and you can go ahead, potentially get Vader and Maul for 6, right? Late game. After already using it, it's a problem. Yeah, it's just a really good deck, and this is probably the best deck at the moment. And
not to mention, Qi'ra herself is a very tactical leader to deploy. Unlike a lot of leaders that's just like, okay, well, I'm at X resource turn, because that's the proper thing to do on curve. She's more of a wait and see what happens type of leader, because she evens the playing field and creates a easy, even 50-50 trade.
Yeah.
Like, she trades with almost every single leader in the game upon her deployment.
Yeah, she's just really solid. And, like, yeah, I mean, there's someone at my locals right now playing Qi'ra Red who does pretty decent against this deck. He's, in his mind, it beats Qi'ra Green. But yeah, you can make the argument, yeah, he gets a Crate Dragon out. Cool, but I still feel like this deck is just better, right? When it comes down to it. Qi'ra red, not bad, right? Probably going to do a deck list on that soon enough. But Qi'ra green, we know how good this deck is, and it's a problem. And it'll continue to be a problem because it's green-blue villainy. But with that being said, that's our tier list, right? So if we go back to it, right, this is what we're rocking with our tier list. I feel pretty good about this. And again, if it's in a solid rogue deck, people don't have to agree. People might say like, hey, listen, Hondo did so well at that tournament at Gen Con, it should be in strong decks. Yes. But also, are you going to tell me that it's better than all the decks up there? I don't know,
also,
right? Like, I just... Yeah.
Thing to keep in mind is the man who was piloting that Hondo deck was George Hudson, who's a very good player, and he's the guy who came up with the Blue Vader deck.
Yeah.
So like, it's definitely his style of play, and he's a wild guy.
He's the control player.
Yeah.
Nah. But all in all, these are all solid decks, and it doesn't mean if your favorite leader and your favorite way to play is not on this list, does not mean that you shouldn't play it or, you know, continue to play it. You know, prove that it's good, right? And maybe it'll come up on this list in the future. But with that being said, we've been going on for a while now, and we should probably end this video, which is what we're going to do right now. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I appreciate the support, as always. Really appreciate it here on the channel. I want to thank Matt for joining me here. We had a good time talking about meta and all that stuff. But with that being said, we're going to go and get out of here, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Hey, guys.